TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Diamond, your State Farm Insurance agent in DeKalb. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Diamond and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. Don't forget Kids Eat for Free on Thursday. For delivery or pickup, go to pizzavilla.com or call 815-758-8116. Elder Care Services of DeKalb. Safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay in home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. My Insurance Guy in Sycamore covers Medicare to auto care and everything in between. Stop by at 204 South Main Street in Sycamore. Call 815-899-0950 or online at myinsuranceguy.com. Welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed, podcast number 38, Suicide Prevention Show number 3. A repeat. Again, we've all been here before. It seems like deja vu all over again, but very honored to have back in the studio. Suzie, now is it Geisler or Geisler? Is it
Geisler?
Geisler. Suzie, welcome back. And again, you were with the, we'll talk about that, the Hope Haven. And we're talking about homelessness and mental illness and unfortunately how it ultimately sometimes leads to suicide. And also joining us is Deanna Cada from the DeKalb County Mental Health Board. Deanna, how you doing today?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Thank you guys both for coming back. We kind of lost it, like the lost episode. There's an episode somewhere out there with the three of us. It's in the internet somewhere. But we were so grateful for you guys to come back and join us again a second time. We're talking again how it ties in. And a few months ago, the city council was talking about homelessness. Leslie Wicks from Hope Haven was speaking there as well. A lot of us learned a lot about homelessness in DeKalb County. And I thought we'd hit some numbers here. Precise city-level homelessness counts in DeKalb, Illinois are typically gathered through the annual point-in-time surveys. Now, do you know about that, Suzie, the point-in-time surveys?
Yes, so that's that's a national standard. And so we are looking at any point in time, we take one, it is one, like any point in time, the contact.
Right, because
so,
homelessness is so fluid, right?
It absolutely is very fluid. So yes, so we can't always get the most accurate number. We do try with our tracking, but it's not always possible because it is so fluid.
And again, we'll talk about those numbers, but now I see here regional stats. It says DeKalb is part of Boone, Winnebago, DeKalb Continuum of Care, or COSI, which served 1,341 individuals in 2024. So a lot of services are combined with Boone County and Winnebago County.
Yes, and that is part of, I believe, HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That is how the federal government has set up how their funding will ultimately come down to local.
Okay, and the DeKalb County Mental Health Board, Deanna, is that the same way, or how are you guys funded there?
So our funding actually comes from property tax in DeKalb County. So we only serve DeKalb County residents. We get a portion of property tax. It was voted on 68, I think was the year it was voted on, to ensure that people had access to services in the areas of mental health, substance use, and developmental disabilities. We do know about the continuum of care, participated on it in the past, and like Suzie said, it is a way to make sure that there's a group of people that are always thinking about and talking about homelessness and the unhoused in our community and trying to come up with programs, ideas, ways that we can make sure that we're serving our community members who are unhoused.
And Suzie, you make a great point, because as we said a couple of months ago, Leslie was speaking in front of the city council, and then now I noticed in the paper and everything, it's kind of just gone away. That issue is just like nobody's talking about homeless again now.
Yes. Yeah.
And that happens. It does. It's kind of a cycle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even though it is in every corner of this country at all times. So yes, there was a big buzz. And I think, yes, there is that benefit because it gets people thinking, particularly in more of the systems and the local government and how we can get involved. And that is not to say that suddenly people don't care. Because we do see that every day as well at Hope Haven, people caring. But yes, I think there was a big buzz and now we're back in the lull.
Okay, well, that's why we're keeping people this in the front of mind here. And let's talk about shelter capacity. Now, this is the most up-to-date numbers. Tell me if they're wrong. Hope Haven, the primary shelter in DeKalb County, serves a significant portion of this population. Historical snapshot shows 88 people staying in the shelter on any given night for emergency or transitional programs with additional residents in permanent supported housing as well. And that's like 26 or 28, right, in the permanent housing?
Yes. We serve about anywhere from 55 people in emergency shelter a night. We are currently a warming center We're kind of a stopgap until the UU opens up. So
For folks who don't know, that's a Universalist church, right?
yes, the Unitarian Universalist Church of DeKalb. They have a warming center, I believe, opening in January. So right now we are the stopgap in that, especially for overnight. We average anywhere from 5 to 10 people a night, both on the women and the men's side. So that ups our numbers as well. And then we have just under 40 permanent housing, subsidized housing projects. So we have our Housing First, which houses our friends who cannot live fully independently, but it keeps them in the least restrictive environment. These are often individuals who have severe mental illness. We call them our hardest to house. And then we also have a whole separate apartment complex, which is dresser court apartments. And that is about 26 or so. Don't quote me fully.
Okay, well, again, it's fluid. Yes.
Yeah, don't quote me fully. But those are adults with a documented disability who have experienced chronic homelessness. And so, again, this is a way for them to get support and maintain their housing and ultimately, maintain quality of life.
And some of the stories here, one from the Daily Chronicle, when they were talking about helping you guys out with the homeless shelter. Leslie Wicks is saying, too, that the shelter can't take people with certain criminal histories, including registered sex offenders. There's a 5-page list of rules, right? So you're not just letting anybody in at the shelter, right? Because you have to consider the safety of everybody else, right?
Correct. And because we do have children, that's just a clear line that we cannot allow that.
No. And as you point here, where Leslie says not everyone wants the helping hand. So I'm sure you go to a lot of people and say, I'm fine right where I'm at, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so I think it can be very difficult for some people to understand that we all make our own choices and we still have agency no matter what situation we might be in. And so there are people who choose not to enter shelter for whatever reason. And that is their right to make that decision. We talk about, we come down to some of the ethics of the mental health field, which is client self-determination. We have only very certain circumstances where we can truly make decisions for other people, and this is not one of them.
Okay, Deanna, this really complicates things when we talk about maybe schizophrenia or other mental illnesses where you feel like paranoid or people out to get you, so I'm not going to go in this place. And it sounds like a vicious cycle there. How can we break that?
So one of the things is for sure is when you see one homeless person, you've seen one homeless person. Everybody has a different story about what brought them to being unhoused. Everybody has a different story about what their current circumstances are. You will hear stories about people who have homes, who have some place to sleep and will end up sleeping outdoors because that's a preference. And that can be somebody who is a veteran and has post-traumatic stress disorder.
Our suicide prevention show with a gentleman who wanted to sleep outside. He had a gun in every room in the house, too, as well.
And so, right, so he made a choice. He had housing, and he made a choice because he was more comfortable being outside. People who have severe and persistent mental illness, who are experiencing hallucinations, somebody who is schizophrenic and may have some paranoid delusions, may not be comfortable sleeping in a home because their paranoid delusions keep them from feeling safe there. And so they may then be homeless because they don't feel safe anywhere else, and so they feel safer outside. So that's the real critical thing when we talk about homelessness is we don't know what brings everybody to it. And so we have to look at each person as an individual and then work with them about, okay, what is it that you need in this moment so that you can be successful and we can get you into housing? Which
is one of the best parts of my job in a sense, because I can truly meet people where they are at.
Okay.
Due to the mental health board's funding of our clinical department, which is myself and a psychiatrist, we are able to support however it might be. So if that might mean I have a conversation with someone who is not grounded in reality and it's a great conversation, cool. I have built a connection with someone and they felt safe enough to come talk to me. It is sometimes crisis intervention where I'm making threat assessments. I'm assessing for, okay, what does this person need right now? are they truly safe? What's the next step there? To, okay, people have come in crying. People have come in saying, no, I have these goals. I want to do this, this, and this. And we work on that. It's extremely flexible. And I really wouldn't have that any other place because I don't answer to insurance.
Right.
I ultimately answer to my ethics and the mental health board kind of, but I don't have to worry about, is this going to get me reimbursed by insurance?
But you're moving forward too, right? The person feels like there's some progress being made as opposed to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. My clinical supervisor is Executive Director Leslie Wicks. And one of the first things that she kind of told me early on, I've been there for 5 years now. She said, you cannot deny, or there's something really important about sitting with someone in their pain and listening to their story. And that's powerful. And that has stuck with me clearly for over 5 years. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, actually just sitting there is making a difference.
I read Winnie the Pooh, Art of Zen when I was in college. A really great book and relating to Zen and how Winnie the Pooh. And then one of the things I always remember was when Pooh went to sit with Igor, he just wanted somebody to sit with him. He didn't anybody talk to him at all. He just and just being there, right? That physical presence can make a difference.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good.
And I think something that's really critical is that oftentimes, this time of year, we're not seeing a lot of people who are homeless on the streets because it's cold. And so they've come up with other accommodations, whatever that looks like for them. But over the years in DeKalb, we have had various people who have been known to the community who are homeless. And oftentimes people are like, why aren't you helping them? Why isn't somebody doing something? Why isn't Hope Haven going and talking to them? Why isn't somebody from Ben Gordon working with them? And the truth is they are. They're being served.
Yes.
But they, as Suzie said, they have agency to make decisions. And so just to really hit home what Suzie said, the relationship building is critical because people have choice. And so what Suzie does and what they do at Hope Haven is build relationships with people so that they start trusting Hope Haven or what other services are available, then we can get them housed. But it can take a long time. It's not like we're swooping people up off the street and forcing them into housing.
Right.
It has to be something that is their choice and that we can make work for them. And so I really think it's imperative to know that when you see somebody who is, you'll see people in front of Walmart who are asking for handouts. You will see people on the streets and you're like, why isn't anybody doing something? Please know people are doing something, but it can take longer than 1 day, 1 week, 1 month for people to move towards getting assistance.
Yeah, and there's always that one little stretch there in front of the Walmart where there's somebody inevitably panhandling there. Now, I remember a story years ago. A gentleman used to walk in front of Jewel, the Jewel's food store here on Sycamore Road, and he'd walk up and down. And I remember inquiring with some people, and they said, I found out that his family said he's comfortable doing that. That's where he was comfortable being, and it was safe. He knew how to cross the street and everything. So they would let him go every day to just go and walk there because he was mentally comfortable there. So
yeah.
And we all saw that. We saw this gentleman walking, and I had another situation where a lady was walking in DeKalb carrying her luggage all the time. Remember, I finally tracked her down in front of Farm and Fleet, and I asked her, do you need some help? And she said no. And she was fine as she was, and she had her stuff, and that was it. I mean, so I tried to reach out, but she said no, and but that can happen, right? As you said.
Absolutely. And I think, we get this idea of what normal is, right? And so when something doesn't look normal, you're like, oh my gosh, we need intervention, we need help. But our normal is different than other people's normal. And so the person that you're talking about with luggage, that was her normal. Like that's just how she managed the world. And so she didn't need help because she was functioning at the top of her level and doing what she needed to do, just like your person in Jewel. So the other part of this is that just because something doesn't look like it's normal doesn't mean that it's not. It's
Right.
could be totally normal for them. And once again, intervention is happening. We have we're lacking services just like everybody is, but we actually are pretty service rich here in DeKalb County. And we have law enforcement officials who are trained in crisis intervention team training. They know how to work with people who have mental illness or who are in crisis. We have Hope Haven, and they do awesome outreach. We have a lot of programming through Northwestern Medicine. We have police social workers. We have the living room, which is someplace if you're feeling mentally unwell, you can go and get assistance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so we do have resources that are helping people, and that, we're not just leaving people out there without assistance.
Well, we're seeing it with the DeKalb Police Department. We had Chief Bird here from the DeKalb Police Department and talking about interventions like, well, especially with domestic violence calls, that inevitably, if the police aren't needed, a social worker can come in and resolve that issue and leave the police out of it, right?
Absolutely. If it's not a public safety issue, so if people are safe, it is an issue of, trying to get to people who need to have a different understanding of each other. Social workers can come in and help with that, and they can lead them to the resources that are going to make a difference. Now, if it is a public safety issue, if we have violence happening, we need law enforcement there to take care of that. And so opening up law enforcement to take care of the safety side of things and having the social workers deal with the relational, social, behavioral health care side of things, that's a win-win for everybody because we have the right people doing the right things at the right time.
Very good. And then I saw here now, as of 2025, so again, these are the most up-to-date numbers we have, approximately 15.7% of the DeKalb County population is living with severe housing problems. Now, when we hear that, Suzie, what does that mean, severe housing problems?
So there is a term of severe housing cost burdened, and that generally means that people are paying more than 50% of their income on housing costs.
Oh, okay.
Whereas there's the less severe but still big, it's that it's more than 30% of their income. And this is where I want to really emphasize as well that the primary cause of homelessness is lack of truly affordable housing. It is not addiction. It is not mental illness. It is not because you made a bad choice here and there. They can be contributing factors in the sense of, if you're experiencing really some mental hardship, it's going to be harder to function. But it does not compare to the systemic issues in this country of things are more expensive than ever, housing and just basic needs. Wages are not catching up. Our social safety nets are falling by the wayside. Yes. And the programming and the funding is getting cut for those things. So people are stretched even more thin. And there is a piece, of the lack of access to quality health care can worsen conditions that might have already been present, and also can ultimately bring about some other things as well. But again, mental illness cannot stand to the system of our country and our economic situations of there is no truly affordable housing in this country.
Standing ovation for that, right? That's true. That is what causes people to be unhoused. They can't afford housing.
Yes.
I know we hear that time and time again. I know it's amazing. Now, you were talking about housing around the country. I found that interesting because, and this is just general. This is off the AI. Popular studies are home. What is the top 3 homeless cities in the U.S.? Amazingly, nearly 1/4 of all Americans unhoused, 24% reside in New York City or Los Angeles alone.
Yes.
Seattle, San Diego, and Denver round out the 5 cities with the highest homeless population, each with more than 10,000 unhoused residents there. So
yes,
a little surprising.
Chicago doesn't touch it.
No.
And again, I think that's a big stereotype that Chicago gets a lot of flack for that. And I'm not about to say that there isn't an issue because, again, homelessness is in every corner of this country, in every community.
Well, that's funny you mentioned because there is the follow-up question was what state has no homelessness? And there's no definitive answer there, but it's Wyoming, North Dakota, and Mississippi have the smallest homeless population, 532, 784, and 982. These are the only 3 states with counts of people experiencing homelessness below 1,000 people. Homelessness is most prevalent in District of Columbia, New York, and Vermont.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah,
Vermont.
which again is surprising, but because it is so rural. There are so many disparities ultimately within what we see people affected by homelessness and the housing burden. And it is overwhelmingly people in marginalized communities. And so that includes the rural and suburban areas because there isn't as much funding. And so we are considered that. And if you think about it, Chicago will get a lot more money than DeKalb or our continuum of care because there are more people. And okay,
so you would go to where the services are.
Exactly. And so it's neither right nor wrong. It just is. Because there are people to serve there. There are people to serve in every continuum of care as well. So it is what it is.
Now, Deanna, when we talk about DeKalb County, we were doing Freezing for Food, and I realized I printed out all the little towns that make up DeKalb County, which is about 10 or 12, places like Sandwich and Malta and things like that. What if they have mental illness problems? Do they have to come to DeKalb? Is there any satellite reach out there for them?
So that's a great question. So once again, because the highest population is in the DeKalb Sycamore
Right.
area,
And you
right?
go to
We're
where
going
the
to have it.
services are,
Yep.
right, uh-huh.
But we do have a couple different options there. So Sandwich does have services available. And then when you start looking at the more rural communities, Ashabana, Waterman, a couple different things. One, many of our providers have telehealth. So if we have people who have access to internet, they can get services through telehealth.
But
Now,
the first part, that have access to the... yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's why we have some complications. If they don't have access to internet, they might not have access to services. We do have, through Northwestern Medicine, our mobile crisis response team. So if somebody's in crisis in one of our smaller communities, you can call 988 or call the Ben Gordon Center helpline, and they will send out their mobile crisis response if it is appropriate to do so. 988 is a great option for smaller communities and larger communities, anybody who is having some mental health concerns. They can call 988. They'll be connected with somebody who has training and the ability to talk with them about their mental health crisis. It is our suicide prevention phone number now, but it is also our mental health crisis phone number. And
But again, these aren't just kind souls that volunteering their time. These are trained professionals that know how to talk to somebody who's in a mental crisis, right?
Absolutely. And if they're so concerned about the person that's in mental health crisis, they will call and have that mobile crisis response unit respond in person. So we're not leaving people behind that way. We just got to get the word out. A lot of people, I am shocked how many people don't know that 988 is a resource in our country.
Now, when I was researching this, I saw a thing that says, what do homeless people do with no money? And one says, call 211. Do you know about 211? I'm learning this. For a directory of housing, food, and crisis services, search homeless shelter plus your city or emergency shelter your county and check municipal or county human services website. Contact local churches, Salvation Army, Red Cross, and Community Health Center. So you can dial 211. It's another option. Huh?
Yes, that's through United Way.
Okay.
And I believe that is a national scale initiative, Deanna?
So it is in a national scale initiative. It doesn't mean every area is covered, but
Right.
DeKalb County is covered under 211. So 211 is your referral and resource. So
different from 988. That's
Correct.
Totally
referral.
different.
Okay.
Yep, totally different. So 211 is you're like, oh, I need food, I need housing. I'm going to call 211 and find out where those resources exist in our community. 988 is if, you know what, I can't get out of bed today because I'm hopeless. You call 988.
Okay.
And so there's different options. Now, if you call one and not the other because you remember 211 and not 988, they will help you get to that number because what we want to do is make sure people are taken care of.
Yep.
But those are both resources for our DeKalb County community.
And it's so important to keep that person on the line, right? Because they finally worked up the nerve to call, and you don't want them to lose that call or don't tell them to call back, God forbid, or something like that.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the reasons for the change to 988 from the National Suicide Hotline is because many of those calls were being dropped. And so we were losing people because the connection to a local person wasn't happening very smoothly. So 988 allows for a much smoother transfer of those calls so that people can get the care they need when they're needing it and asking for it.
I was just thinking, sadly, that frustration could ultimately lead you to committing the act, wouldn't it? Because you're
Right.
just at that point, well, nobody's going to help me at this point.
And so, statistics aren't very sexy, but they are really important. And so since 988 has been implemented, the statistics show that it has lowered those numbers of dropped calls. And in fact, most people who call 988 get their issues resolved with the 988 person. 80% of the calls are handled with the 988. Only about 10 to 15% actually need somebody to go out and call for safety reasons.
Well, it's funny you mentioned stats here because when I was doing some research for this, I typed in, what is the success rate for Haven for Hope? Oh, I see, this is different than you guys. I'm sorry, this is Haven for Hope. But it says the root cause for homelessness, unemployment, substance abuse, mental illness, as well as domestic violence, poverty, and lack of affordable housing, with an array of social services in centralized locations, result in a 60% rate. So that's not you, I'm sorry. That's Haven for Hope.
But I would hope that
Good
our
for
numbers,
Haven.
yeah.
Good for Haven of Hope.
Yes, there
Very
you go.
good for them.
But
like,
I hope our
doing the
numbers would
work.
be simpler because Hope Haven is referring out for those needs where they're needed. They're taking care of people. Like Suzie said, she is a therapist that is working with folks. We have a psychiatrist who works with people who are homeless that we make sure is available to them. So we are trying to have those local resources for people to be taken care of. And there's one thing I really want to make sure to say is that, when you think about homelessness, I think a lot of people still have this vision in their mind of like a hobo, right? And that is so passé. It's so wrong. It does not exist. We have people who are homeless who are working full time, but they cannot afford an apartment. But one of the things that being homeless can do is it can impact your mental health. So being homeless is actually related to mental illness because there's no way that you can be homeless and still be okay sometimes because you're constantly struggling day to day to make sure that you're getting your needs met.
It's always survival mode.
I bet. Yeah. You know what? Recently, my wife and I, we paid off our mortgage, and we were sitting in the house, and just how wonderful it is, to have a home that's paid for. And then I thought about the anguish and the stress that people have that don't even have an apartment, let alone a home. And that's just that's 24/7, isn't it, on your mind?
Right.
Absolutely. And like Suzie said, you can be making decent money and still can't afford your apartment because affordability is such a huge issue. And I've heard many stories. You talked about California's numbers. Teachers out there who are making $45,000 a year cannot afford to live out there. They are living in their cars. They're going and taking showers in the sink at the gas stations. They are going to get their meals wherever they can because that amount of money is not affordable in those areas. And so I think that's something, as DeKalb continues to look at the issues that exist here, affordable housing has to be part of that conversation because we can have perfectly healthy people who can't afford someplace to live, who can end up housed, and then we have them entering into the mental health field because of that situation.
Well, I know, like for instance, in Sycamore, they were talking about new housing development there. And the moment they mentioned Section 8 housing, people just and everyone was like, oh my gosh, and that's everything. So there's that stigma, isn't there, when people think, Section 8, that's when everything's going to go bad now.
Absolutely. Yes. When Section 8 and public housing, however, whatever potential subsidy it is that helps, when we can get people into housing and a stable housing, the rest can fall into place. It's called the Housing First model. It is the gold standard practice within social services and working with unhoused, homeless, poverty populations. So it's actually really great. And I'm not about to say that there aren't problems with it.
Right.
But we know that when people are housed and stable there, the rest can get worked on and ultimately fall into place.
Because that's a huge burden off the back of their head, right?
Huge burden, because at least they know that that's where I'm going to be tonight. I am safe. I am stable with that. Now, what do I need to do?
And the stigma piece that's what happens, right? Is people, Section 8, there's stigma around that.
Absolutely.
And what people don't realize is, if you're not in Section 8 housing, if you live in a neighborhood, guess what? You have people in your neighborhood who have mental illness.
Yeah.
You have people in your neighborhood who have substance use disorder. You have people in your neighborhood who have committed crimes. You just don't know it unless you're in their business. But you're going to have that wherever you live. But when people hear Section 8, that's where they go to because we have this image that just isn't reality. Are there people who receive subsidy that have substance use issues, mental health issues, who've committed criminal acts? Possibly. But once again, that's in every neighborhood. I live in a very nice neighborhood. All of those things have happened in my neighborhood because that's human, right? That's just what happens. And so I think we just have this very narrow-minded view of helping people, and we need to really change that perception to being like, no, these are your grandparents, right? This is the person who cuts your hair. This is the person who washes dishes at the restaurant you love, who can't afford housing. And so Section 8 helps them, gives them that boost up. Everyone's like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. This is a bootstrap. This is how people get helped.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we need to change the narrative about that.
Well, I tell you, it's an eye-opening thing for me as I'm working over at the Hayes Gym now, and they're allowing the Universalist Church, allowing for people to come and shower there. And there was a young couple in their, maybe their mid-20s, early 20s, and I was just taken aback. I mean, they were both very nice and friendly, and I'm just like, well, how can I just wanted to help the people. I met them, and like they're young, and they're obviously trying to get their act together, and But it happens, right? I mean, here's a young couple in their 20s, homeless. And,
Yep.
And I saw them, with their meager belongings. And I go, when they leave here after they take a shower, where do they go from here, And then I come over here and we're recording in the library, and I see many homeless people here in the library as well. But I only know that's only good till the library closes, right? I mean, so it's amazing to see how people live on the streets.
How resourceful you must be to survive.
Yes.
Which takes some smarts.
All right, very good. Now, well, I want to talk about the history of Hope Haven. We're running out of time quickly, but it's amazing how far you guys come. You started in 1986 with the PADS, right? The Public Action to Deliver Shelter. We had a place at the First United Methodist Church in 1990. You guys went from 7 nights a week to a permanent site at 316 North 6th Street, and that was an old. You know what that was? An old building, an old.
I have
I
not.
read that somewhere in the article.
Where? Yeah. What was it?
I don't know what it was before. And then in 2000, you guys had a new shelter where you're now on Rushmore Drive, tripling
Yes.
the capacity you could
Yes.
serve. 2004, Dresser Court opened, and that's the residence, right? Tell us about that again, the
Yes.
Dresser Court.
Dresser Court Apartments is its own separate building, apartment complex. It is owned by the Housing Authority for the County of DeKalb, but then staffed for the supportive services by Hope Haven. And so everybody who lives there has come through Hope Haven. It is adults with a documented disability who have experienced chronic homelessness, and that's generally considered about a year or more.
Okay.
And so these individuals have their own 1-bedroom apartments. It is a suite bathroom, so they only share the bathroom with one other tenant. And there are the common areas, there are activities that are always going on, and there is required case management,
Okay.
which again is to help maintain their housing and their quality of life. And because they remain in Hope Haven programming, they're also able to access the clinical services that we provide over on Rushmore Drive.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
So you don't want to slip back, right? You go that far, you don't want to slip back.
Yes. And we try really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. It's not perfect. Again, agency, choices,
The
people
human
make this.
factor,
Yep,
yes.
yep. Humans are humans. Yes, but we are much more than eats and sheets, hot in a cot. We're providing these really big wraparound services on top of the connection to more long-term community services, or what we can't provide in that moment, or we just don't do, so that people are able to get what they need, or at least they know about it and then can choose whether or not they would like to.
Oh, very well put there.
pursue.
What is that term? You hot in the cot? What's the other one you said?
Hot and cot, eats and sheets.
Eats and sheets. I've
Yeah.
never heard that
So what you might think of as that, like the soup kitchen, the stereotypical, you get a cot, you get a bowl of soup, you get to sleep the night, and then you're out. That's not us.
No, okay. Very good. Wow, that's great to learn that. 2011, you had an addition of 4,500 square feet, including 30 more beds.
Yes.
A large classroom and an additional playroom. Tell us about the classroom and the playroom. That's great, because obviously kids are involved here.
Yes. So the classroom is a big multi-purpose room. So that whole wing, it gave us 30 beds. That became our men's emergency shelter. So we have a room of 30 bunk beds, plus we have cots that come in for, when people have nowhere to go. So we figure it out. That's also the office where our psychiatrist sees patients. And then our classroom is a big multi-purpose room. So we have our staff meetings there. We have, when presentations come in, I try to bring in some health programming like flu shots, and what did we do? Like women's breast health and cardiac health and diabetes, like on-site A1C testing. So we do that in there. HIV testing, we partner for that. When we have our Christmas programming, we have tutoring that kind of goes on. We have a case manager right now who took it upon herself to kind of really emphasize the academic success piece.
Okay.
And you can do your homework, and reading is really fun. And, we're going to sit down and even bringing in some mentorship pieces. So that happens in there. We've had movie nights with the kids, and that goes on in there. So it is a big multi-purpose room.
Uh-huh. It sounds like you really needed
Doing
it
a
too.
ton
Yeah.
of different things at any point in time. Right now it is our warming center.
Okay.
So it's been shut down to other things for that, but that is the priority.
And I've learned what other church groups bring meals, like a meal for the night. They'll bring.
Yes. Yes. We've had church groups who have been connected to Hope Haven from the beginning. We receive a majority of our dinners from local church groups who make the meals. And that was my remembering and my recollection of Hope Haven as a child. I moved here. I finished kindergarten here. I never thought I'd be back, but here we are.
Must have dipped your toe in the Kishwaukee River. They say
No, I did not. No, I did not. And it still happened. I remember going to deliver meals.
Really?
To Hope Haven. And so, I saw from an early age that it's not the stereotype. Though it was like a big maze, so I was already overwhelmed. And I'm still overwhelmed 5 years later working there because it's still a maze. But that was my big introduction to what we're seeing in our community. And so to be 31 now and working there and still seeing those churches and the rest of the community bringing these meals in and doing a major help for us because we're able to feed our clients.
Right.
It's incredible.
That is. That's what a wonderful aspect of that. And then finally, in 2015, Hope Haven opened two programs based on evidence-based best practices in the field of homelessness. The rapid rehousing program, that's what you kind of touched on that, right?
Rapid rehousing is a way to house people permanently in the community. So they are with, private landlords and whatnot, and we are able to subsidize their rent so that they are paying only 30% of their income.
Okay.
They also continue to receive supportive services from us. So that is case management. They still have access to clinical services should they wish to engage in that. And the idea is to kind of be able for them to build a nest egg and again, have those other things fall into place so that when their rapid rehousing program ends, because it can be for up to 2 years, they are able to sustain it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we often use the analogy from the Bible where, you can give a man a fish to eat for a day, but teach a man to fish to eat for a lifetime. And you're really teaching people how to fish and survive and maintain that life.
Yes. So they get the fish because we're not going to deny you food. And we're going to be here to support you to increase that agency and realize that, no, you can do this. This is hard, but we have your back. You can do hard things. You're going to learn to fish and it's going to be okay.
And Deanna, when we talk about mental illness and homeless folks, I remember doing the suicide prevention show, talking to a gentleman who had, I believe it was schizophrenia, and he was taking the medication. And he thought he was getting better. He was getting better. So he thought he'd stop taking the medication. And it must be a common, and then folks that are homeless that are on a medication, all of a sudden they don't have access to that medication, right?
Exactly. So there actually is a mental illness that makes you not realize you have mental illness.
Okay.
And so I can't remember the name of it. Suzie, you might have it.
Well, I mean, just the lack of insight.
Yeah.
The lack of insight into how sick you might be.
Well, the ad that always scares me, where they may cause suicidal thoughts. I'm like, so how do you know it's the product that's causing suicidal thoughts? And God forbid you act on those.
And that's why we have doctors and psychiatrists, because I cannot touch that. That's not my specialty.
No, okay.
Yeah. No, yeah.
That's scary stuff. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But you know what? And medications, some work for some people. They need to try a couple before they find the right one. Just like I'm on blood pressure medicine. It took a long time to find the one that works for me. Same thing with mental health medications. It can take a while. You find that one, you get feeling better. Sometimes you get feeling better and you think, I don't need to take it anymore. But just like with blood pressure, you got to keep taking it for your quality of life. And that's why medical intervention is always really important as well.
And we talked to several people that went through multiple therapists as well. You got to find that right therapist too, don't you?
Yeah, just like you're, getting your hair cut. It takes a while for me to find the right person to cut my hair. It can take time to find the right person who's going to help me understand myself in a way where I know I can get better.
But Suzie, you at Hope Haven now, they don't have a lot of options there in terms of them not getting along with their therapists. At the time, right? I mean,
correct, because I am the one therapist. Right. Our executive director, Leslie Wicks, is a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. So she can take people, and she does take in very certain circumstances, maybe 1 or 2 clients max. However, they are not required to meet with me.
Okay.
So if they're already connected into mental health services like Ben Gordon, AID, Family Service Agency, or wherever they might be, then they don't talk to me for therapy. Now, if it's a crisis and it's like, okay, we're going to deal with this right now because we're in crisis,
Right.
that's different. But I don't duplicate services. So if you're already connected in the community, that's great.
Okay.
I want you to stay there. And if you don't like me, you don't have to talk to me. So I will gladly refer you to some other places.
And then finally, I wanted to mention about outreach here because, we do the suicide prevention show and we talked about talking to young kids about suicide. They went into high schools and then ultimately going into grade schools because unfortunately there's young people committing suicide at that young age. And
Yes.
you guys reach out to schools and stuff. Tell us about that, the outreach program.
Yeah. So our outreach program is broad. So it is partially, okay, we are aware of somebody who might be unsheltered, unhoused, so potentially living on the streets, living in their car, in a place not meant for human habitation. And so we do provide that outreach, just like Deanna had said. Don't assume that they're not getting services or they're not connected, because they probably are. They probably are. And so we have that piece. We have the outreach where we're giving presentations to schools, or schools have done a really cool drive of something. I think we have a school who does a cereal drive, and it stocks our pantry with breakfast for a long time. We have another one who participates in Socktober. We have the Kindness Crew, and I don't remember where that's from, but they make us tie blankets every year.
Okay.
So everybody gets a holiday present, at the very least, because these kids have made these by hand. It's great. Or we're in professional organizations, working within the broader community. So it's trying to saturate where we need to be to provide that education, to provide our expertise. I mean, this is technically outreach, is it not?
Right.
So here we are. So it's a very broad piece.
But the children are really moved by because many have seen the viral videos where they're inside eating with their parents and the young girl sees a homeless man out in the street and asks their mom and dad if can I bring this food out to this gentleman. They don't see anything else than as somebody who's struggling out there. They don't see that, oh God, we're in a fancy restaurant, I shouldn't go in. They just see somebody who's hungry and just bring the food to them. It's so, because the kids can break through all that, can't they?
Yep. Yes,
That's
absolutely.
Great to see that. We're quickly running out of time here. I want to mention, though, key resources. You've already mentioned that. Hope Haven of DeKalb County offers clinical services, psychiatry, counseling, substance abuse for homeless individuals with mental health needs, plus specialized housing like Dresser Court, subsidized apartments for disabled and chronically homeless. Northwestern Medicine Ben Gordon Center, right? We had our friends in Ben Gordon Center, and we have the what is it? The living room, right? Where people can you? Are you okay? Can you?
Yeah, and I apologize.
No, that's
when
all
you
right.
try to keep from coughing, it makes you cough
Oh, yes.
so much more, which is what I'm dealing with. So yes, the living room is it's a place to go if you're feeling unwell, mentally unwell. They can give you a snack. They can put you in a quiet spot. They will have a peer support specialist, so somebody who's been right where you've been.
Okay.
Come talk to you, and they have mental health professionals. They are there every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It is not a homeless shelter. It is, you can't be there longer than 23 hours. It is a short-term way to help you feel better when you're not feeling well, or to give you that next step if you need additional services.
And Suzie, like you alluded to, and then it's up to that individual to decide how much or how little help they get.
Yes, exactly. Yep. We cannot make people do something.
Right.
We can only provide the resources and support and hope that we've planted a seed, that we've built enough rapport that maybe, okay, they're cool. Maybe I should consider this.
Very good.
Yeah.
And Family Services, you mentioned that too, offers holistic, trauma-informed support, addressing immediate needs like housing and food alongside long-term goals for self-sufficiency. And the DeKalb County Mental Health Board, as we mentioned, funds local services to improve access to behavioral health. So it's like you said, we have the services here, right? It's just a matter of utilizing them and then getting the people that need it to get them those services, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And it's not perfect. You know, we still have people who fall through the gaps, but we're trying all the time to improve, to get better, to listen to people about what their needs are and make sure that we're matching them up with what exists in the community. And people can call the mental health board or go to our website and find the multitude of resources that are available.
All right, very well put. And you know, in radio, we used to have a term called call to action. Call to action. So you guys mentioned about low-income housing and not having that. What can we do as citizens of DeKalb County to help make this happen? Do we talk to our local politicians? Do we talk to our state legislators? How do we make a more affordable housing in DeKalb County?
Yes.
What would be your call to action?
Yes, to all that. Yes.
Yes,
All that.
and
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Whatever
Be-
you can do, right?
Right. Be educated, first of all, and see why we don't have affordable housing. Talk to your local governmental officials, talk to your state governmental officials, talk to your federal governmental officials. If you want to help, you know, just really on a basic level, the drives that Suzie talked about, donations, you know, funding is something. None of this happens without money, which is unfortunate, but is also the reality of it.
Yes.
If you want to volunteer, there's lots of opportunities in our community to volunteer. Those meals that Susie's talking about don't make themselves. We need volunteers to do that. So there is advocacy, volunteering, funding, you know, helping spread the word, talking to people about getting rid of the stigma, being educated about what these actual issues are. And, you know, like you, TD, just asking somebody if they need help sometimes, giving somebody a ride, you know, helping somebody find the food pantries that exist in our community, because that's something we're rich in as well. Like, those all help.
But something I've learned doing the show with you guys is that in the long run, it's better to get the help up front, because it's going to cost more money. If we're going to want to talk about money, it's going to cost more money down the ride, right? If they don't get the help that they need.
Yes, that preventive care, the prevention, the early intervention saves you down the road. So if we can get you talking, maybe considering even just medication with their psychiatrist, or hey, like, you have this safe space in my office, you know, when I'm here and I'm free, come find me, that can prevent an emergency room visit, potentially, or a potential then hospitalization that adds up. And it ultimately does come back to taxpayers because of our federal and statewide, you know, subsidies. So there's a reason why the Mental Health Board has supported clinical services at Hope Haven and across the county. It's for a reason, because it ultimately does save.
Well, you know, a lot of work needs to be done, but as you said, it's amazing to go back and see how Hope Haven started humbly in 1986 and how far you guys have come.
Yes. Yes.
And Deanna, people being more aware of mental illness than ever before. That's another positive we have in our society right now, right?
Absolutely. And this is a positive in our society, talking about it, normalizing mental health conversations, normalizing the fact that, you know, we need social services to take care of our neighbors and each other. Like, being able to come here and talk to you about that, have Suzie share all that information. This is critical. This is important work.
Well, we thank you both not only for coming back today, but for what you do on a daily basis. So thank you both so much for that. And again, help out in any way that you can. And again, that's TD Ryan Unleashed, podcast number 38, the Suicide Prevention Show number 3.